Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes, from my garden. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to our CRA Budget Workshop. Today is September the 6th. It is 5:03. Call the roll, please.
Chair James,
Here.
Vice Chair Salvino, Board Member Davis, Board Member Llewellyn, Board Member Odman,
Here.
CRA
Here.
Director Chen, City
Here.
Attorney Boots.
Here. Thank you. And then we'll have a presentation.
I don't have a formal presentation, but I would like to start out by saying that the budget process was conducted this year differently than it was last year. Last year was my first year with Dania Beach and to be engaged in the budgeting process and practices of the city. Therefore, I actually had to kind of sit on the sidelines while watching how this was done. For this year, I'd like to point out that this budget process actually began on April 26th when we had a workshop session with the CRA board and VHB, who is the consultant who is doing the plan update. The title of that was Board Priorities. So we had a chance to hear what your priorities were and desires. That was a starting point for us to consider what to include in the budget. I would also like to point out by the memo, we did do the calculation that if in fact there was a TIF capture with the city, the taxable value growth and increment for the CRA, the combined CRA, which is the original area plus the expanded area, the combined incremental revenues would have been $4,811,000. In this budget process, I also asked the finance department to create some new accounts and titles so that we could more effectively manage and understand the budget as we went through. And the key to this budget process that you have in front of you, the draft, is that in the CRA, we went through and identified every program, every expense we have, and listed it in an itemized fashion to provide a cost associated with that. And we built our budget from the ground up using our knowledge of itemized expenses. With that, our total budget request for 2023 is $3,030,000. This is actually reflecting a decrease of $419,000 from fiscal year 2022. And with that, I also, because there were some questions about previous year's budgets, I created a trend analysis so you can see by broad categories how the budget has run from fiscal year 2020, 21, 22 versus our request for 2023. That analysis is in your package as well. And then the last few pages of this is the draft of our budget request with the line item expenses as I described. And with that, that's all the presentation we have.
Okay. Ralph, until we get the mics, is it a way that if you press your buttons, does it come on? You'll take care of it? Okay. So I'll leave that. Does anyone have any questions surrounding the budget? Or should I start? Okay. I want to know what the miscellaneous seafood revenue. I think I don't have it on this package, but I have my notes here. It said $816,000, I believe. Is that correct? And if it is, what is the breakdown?
That was, well, in fact, Frank is sitting there nodding to me that he can answer that question. And that is from the fiscal year 2022.
Good evening, everyone. Just for to make it quick, that's the 667,000 of that budgeted revenue is for the Celeste project that we got $1 million grant for. So that's the 2/3 remaining that we're going to get from the county and then disperse to the developer this fiscal year. It was supposed to be this fiscal year. I don't know why it's commingled with that seafood account, but it's actually separate from any revenues we would receive from the Arts and Seafood Festival.
Okay, yes, because I had another question was to ask what happened to the payments of Celeste or the Tryon. So the Tryon payments are in art and seafood.
No, I don't know why it's in the same account, why it's listed that way, but it has nothing to do with the Arts and Seafood Festival.
So do we have a separate line item for those payments for the Tryon?
We I'm not sure what the status of that is right now, but I know we've made the first of the 333,000 payment. We've received it from the county and we provided it to the Celeste. Mike,
Yes.
Executive Director Chen, you
I
want
would expect the $667,000 remaining obligation will be claimed during fiscal year 2023. And actually, Chair James, your observation here has pointed out why I felt the need to identify some additional line item titles, because there is confusion when you park things under a budget item that doesn't make sense.
Okay. And the reserves for 2023, I didn't see anything there. So we currently have no reserves because in the last meeting we spoke about we had reserves and that you said what? Right, but it shows zero, I believe. I gotta get to my files.
The revenue and reserve accounts, I actually look to finance to provide me direction on how those blanks get filled out. Um, I think that again, the first column that was the source of your first question is actually the 2022 budget. So under 2023, we have all the various revenue sources that we see coming to the table to fulfill the request of this budget. It ranges from interest and other earnings to some miscellaneous revenues, um, transferred from the general fund, as well as non-operating reapportionments, which comes back from basically, I think they're pretty much carryovers or carryovers from the previous year's budget that were not expended. Oh,
Right, but
that's right. That blank is zero according to what I understand from finance.
okay. I can stop for now if any of my other colleagues have anything. There we go. It's not allowing me to click it now. Okay, go ahead, Joyce.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The only clarification I needed, and I can't find it on the sheet right now, but I know when we did our city budget, what I wanted to see was the differentiation of roles between what the CRA and what the city was investing in the arts and entertainment district. We put, I think, over 500,000 for the city. I'm not sure where that line item is for the CRA. I know that Michael did some background and had some presentations, but I kind of want to see, let's define the roles and responsibilities for each different entity so that we're clear on where the funds are being spent for the arts and entertainment district. So that's the only thing I have.
Okay. I do not have a line item that is specific arts and entertainment district. However, I have put some anticipated expense that would go toward our activities and continued development of the arts and entertainment district. If you look on page 2 of the draft budget. You'll see things like the business attraction and expansion grant, district stimulus incentives. Um, and I also have included this year, I understand in the past, the CRA has had an annual meeting, and I've actually expanded that because I think we should be having business meetings with our businesses as well as with banks that do business in Dania Beach. That will help all of our constituents and residents when they deal with their banks. Now, in regards to the city allocation of CDBG funds as well as allocations specifically identified as Arts and Entertainment District, I've had discussions with Manager Garcia, and we've talked about different ways that we can collaborate together, and basically we can work between each other's budget allocations so that we can develop strategies together that will make things work for both of our benefits. So there is an anticipation of the CRA kind of sharing ideas and strategies with the city manager for that.
Thank you. You have your hand? Oh,
So,
go ahead.
so if we could just know ahead of time, or if we could have it laid out, I'm just very specific, and I understand these conversations are happening and they're ongoing, but I just think it's prudent for us to have the information, in advance so that we're able to see the specificity for each line item and for what all of the funds are going to go towards, going forward. So if we could work on that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
If I may, I will certainly try to develop more detail for you on that. But I will point out that I have included an anticipated fee in this for the increased design of the Complete Streets project on West First Avenue, which is the core of this. And again, as in my discussion with Manager Garcia, we talked about how each of us had put some money in allocation toward the outcome. And that's how we talked about collaborating together so that all of our pieces come together for the most effective and collaborative outcome to continue development and progress with the Arts and Entertainment District.
I have a follow-up for that, and I see you, Vice Chair. So how much money did you allocate in your budget for the Arts and Entertainment District? Like, I know you said you kind of put them different places, but what is the amount of money that you put in other places? Like, what is that amount of money? It should be on a line item. I mean, it was on a line item for the city, so we know exactly where those funds are going. So how much money did you allocate towards that?
I'm trying to answer your question.
No,
Just
no
give me a
problem.
moment.
No problem.
In total, as far as I can uh, do the math in my head, it looks like approximately $150,000 is what I have put in there with the idea of,
150.
excuse me, I'm sorry, it was 100.
And where is that money coming from?
Okay, so there's a district stimulus incentives of 70,000. There is business attraction and expansion grants that is something that I will bring to you as another program of 55,000. And then there is the Complete Streets engineering of 50,000. Then it is certainly part of the strategy with this is the incubator cost in the CRA office in the middle of this district, which is in here for 60,000 for the rent and 15,000 for operating expenses. That is also part of setting up and creating a strong arts and entertainment district.
Okay, and of that funding, I know the last time our director of finance said he hadn't had a chance to, did you all speak about that? Did you get the blessing from, like, to say financially, if this was a good investment, having to have double duties in two different locations with that whole conversation we had last time? Or was there not a
Well,
conversation?
first of all, I did work with Frank to develop this, with finance to develop this budget. What you see in front of you was reviewed and approved by finance for discussion. In terms of the duplication, there is a misunderstanding here. There is not a duplication of efforts here. Things like was mentioned in the previous discussion about the CRA pays a fee to the city for IT support and so forth. That is true. We still do. But the additional IT support we need for this remote location is only for a secure internet line at $250 a month. It does not negate or duplicate what we're paying IT for in terms of supporting for computer security, cybersecurity, software programs, um, computer maintenance, all the different things that IT does for us is still in here, and it's not duplicated by moving a few of our people in operation to the satellite office.
Okay. I'll let the vice chair go, but I'm definitely not on board with the satellite office.
Thank you, Chair. I got a lot to say. Um, well, first of all, I believe that the incubator program will work. I think it's a matter of how we approach it and bring together all the things that we have uh, throughout the city itself, plus the CRA. I don't want to get into all that right now, but I do believe it'll work. I think that some of the things I do think about, and maybe this isn't the time and place, but as far as the seafood festival goes, the patch goes, the developments of what we're doing in our city, and the vacant lots, and the general funds, and so on. Um, I feel that if certain things that I think that this is just my opinion. Okay, I mean, I'm not telling you that it's the right way to go, but this is things I think about as being a business person. I think that let's start with the seafood festival. I think there should be a gate around. I think we should charge an admission. I think the admission should be simple as $10 or $15. People go to all of these festivals everywhere, and that money could go right back into whether we like just like we do the Dania After Dark, and then we hire a a promoter, and that promoter pays a fee to us, and we it doesn't cost anything. That way, that money has come back to us that we have there that he can put into the CRA to do these other programs that he wants to do. I don't understand why with such a great program and people pay it everywhere they go. Along, I mean, I know it's not in the CRA, but when we do the motorcycle show, they do that independently, but they make $10,000, $15,000, and they give it back to the Lions Club. They give it to the here and to the Wounded Warriors program and stuff like that. I don't understand why we have to fund a program through our city that the CRA has to pay for to bring it to the residents, where people are willing to pay that to come out there and have a great time in our city. With that being said, that the funds that come back to that can be put back into certain programs that we have. As far as like the we've talked over and over about the patch, the patch has got a lot of acres there. I think that if we take these undeveloped lots that we can do and move the patch to these undeveloped lots and still be able to do this and fence it up, the monies that we could save from that, and maybe put up another some more affordable housing in that area, that we can try to bring more residents to the city, and still have the patch available to as much property, if not more, by using these undeveloped lots. And we talk about doing parks. I think the CRA should be working on something like that to be able to bring more housing to our city, bring residents a house, a roof over their head. I just think that there's a lot of things that we do in the CRA that cost us a lot of money that we can put back into there, and we can use these funds to do the downtown district and be able to partner up with the city as far as put money that we might have there to do our downtown district and stuff. I just see so many different ways that we're spending money that we shouldn't be spending it, where people are willing to pay the price to have this beautification in our city, to have affordable housing, to have the patch, to have all these things there, and then pay for the seafood festival. I don't get the business into this, where we have to sit there and fund this. Where city um, to do things. I mean, this is just my opinion. I mean, I can go on, but I'm not, I mean, you get my message and where I'm going with this. So that's just my point. So you guys can discuss it, talk about it, blow it off, whatever you want to do, but that's just how I feel about certain things that are there.
Thank you. Board Member Llewellyn?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So let me go backwards from where I was thinking originally. Based upon what the Vice Mayor just said, the Vice Chair, I've been saying for years that there should be a fee for the Arts and Seafood Festival. It doesn't have to be a huge fee. It could be a per person charge, and you can have kids come in for free. And then you would still end up, even if it's a larger family, you'd still have the same cost for a family of 5 as you would for a family of 2, basically. So I don't think there'd be anything wrong with charging a minimal fee. I don't know if you want to make it $15. That might be too much, honestly, for some people. But I think you could do $5 a person for an adult, and that would be fairly reasonable. As far as what I was going to talk about was, well, 2 things. One, let's go back to the Complete Streets and Arts and Entertainment District. With that, how have your discussions been with the city as far as who's handling what as far as the Complete Streets project? Is it a matter of you're handling certain aspects of it and the city's handling certain aspects, or is it a matter of different locations or like different directions? Like, is some of it connectivity? Is some of it just the street itself? How is that supposed to work?
I have had some coordination discussions with the city on this, not to a definitive detail, but it is my understanding that the city actually has 2 target corridors for Complete Street project. One of them is West First Avenue, basically from Sterling Road to Northwest 3rd Street. The other is an east-west corridor on Northwest 1st Street that basically runs from Federal Highway to Bryan Road. I understand that the city's priority right now is the Northwest 1st Street corridor. A lot of it is because of the association with the investment that's being made into the park along that corridor, as well as it gives a nice east-west, I guess, finish, if you will, to that, as well as it being the street that does connect from Federal Highway to Dania Point. So basically, that is one side of the corridor. The other is the West First Avenue corridor, which I see as an economic development initiative. It is really business based. It's to try to bring cars and traffic and so forth from Federal Highway into restaurants and stores and businesses of the city that would be residing along the West First Avenue corridor.
But I don't think you're answering my question though. What I'm
Okay.
trying to find out is, have there been discussions that, for example, there's certain aspects of the street, like is it going to be more arts related, or is it going to be more substantive as far as what the city's going to be doing? Is it going to be like the infrastructure that's involved with the streets, and you're going to be doing the more the art side of it, or is it going to be they're going to be handling West First Avenue and you're going to be handling the connectivity aspect of it, or vice versa? That's what I'm trying to understand, the breakdown.
Okay.
I think we're all trying to understand that. That's the question.
Okay. I see Complete Streets project again. To date, all of the activity with the Complete Streets corridor, from the West First Avenue to the Northwest 1st Street, all of it has been handled under community development and public services. Basically, I'm looking to be engaged with the West First Avenue corridor because it is an economic development corridor that I think what I'm bringing to the table will have substantial impact and influence on our ability to attract funding sources from different places than you would the Northwest 1st Street corridor. the Northwest First Street corridor is more of a residential corridor. West First Avenue is more of an economic development corridor. And I think that they come with different funding sources. I think that what we're doing in the CRA and what we're trying to bring in to energize the arts district that we've talked about, I think that brings an attention to that West First Avenue piece that will that I think the CRA has a more active role in that because of what we're bringing there.
Okay, and I know you're talking about the fact that with the presence on US 1 and all that, which I actually do agree with because I think that it actually draws more attention to the city, and you could do some things with the space that you have open windows in the front that basically show the merchandise and whatnot that we have. Maybe, I don't know, do some things where you can actually show the different projects that are going on within the community, and get so people can come in and ask questions and get answers. And I think even if there isn't an incubator there, which I do think is going to be successful, but even if you didn't have an incubator there, I still think it would be a good idea to have that presence where somebody can see it as soon as they come into town, as opposed to having to come to City Hall and then go behind closed doors to see all of those things. But in that sense, I see the city manager popped up on the screen, which tells me that she may want to add her 2 cents in this just from past experience.
Yes, if I may, through the mayor, if I may, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I was going to actually ask you to chime in because I need a clear answer, because if there is
Thank
not a
you.
clear answer, and where we're and please answer. So we're getting the $500,000 from the city from the ARPA monies, correct? So I'm
That-
uncomfortable giving $150,000 without a plan set in stone, just to say of what we think are good thoughts. We all have great thoughts, but we don't have a plan for that $150,000 that's shoveled in different pots, not even put as art and entertainment district. And I would prefer that we spend money from a grant or forgivable loan or whatever you want to call it, federal money, than spending it from our own. Go ahead, city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, and we've met with Michael several times. As a matter of fact, we met last week with Michael and Mr. Bill Harris and Candido. All four of us met for over an hour and a half. So he could be ready for this meeting. So with the $500,000 that we have set aside, we're focusing from the area of Grandpa's all the way to Sterling. All the way to Dania Beach Boulevard, and all the way down as phase 1 to where we have the Nightbrook Swanson and the campus that ends to the north side, right there on the historic Women's Little House, right? So we're working with community development regarding zoning. We're going to be working with Parks and Recreation regarding the expansion of green space in that campus. Something that I've discussed with Commissioner Davis is also working together to augment the footprint of art in public places. And we're currently working on seizing more arts. And as a matter of fact, art donation, we're going to be working together with Public Services and with Candido in regards to looking at that street to see if maybe we turn that area of the street from Grandpa's to where the post office starts right there and make it pedestrian friendly. So that's what we're focusing on with the 500,000. From my discussions with Michael last week, his 150,000 was going to focus on the complete streets and the connectivity, particularly the connectivity from west to east, coming from Dania Point through the park, through Northwest 1st Street, Dania Beach Boulevard, to the core of the Arts and Entertainment District. So that was the game plan. So I think him having some money in this budget to focus on that connectivity, crossing the people over from the tracks, because I knew that was a priority for you, Mayor, and as well as for you, Commissioner Llewellyn, was what we discussed that the CRA and Michael was going to be focusing on.
So, so the connectivity piece is to do the project that we already had said about the railroad.
No, I tell you, I'm not sure that I understood what was just said there, because the money that that I put in the budget that is looking to go directly to the arts and entertainment district is really to try to fill stores and to tie them to the West First Avenue corridor so that they have the dual frontage from Federal Highway to West First Avenue, so that we can bring more key businesses in that will be catalysts to draw more and more businesses in. Um, that's where the money that I have set aside was going to. And as far as the complete streets design and engineering that I see, I think that we have the same concept of a phase one for a complete streets project on West First Avenue. Basically, from Grandpa's cross street to Northwest First Street is phase one. That basically is the heart of our uh, current activity center. It encompasses the frontage of City Hall. It is where we hold Dania After Dark. It is where there's a number of businesses moving in. That was part of our display as far as the expansion and critical mass of an arts and entertainment district. So, for instance, Rob Stone, his shop is actually located right at the north end of that first phase corridor that I just described.
So you're not going to work on connectivity because we're on two
Uh,
different pages here.
I
We're
know.
saying two completely different things. Uh, on one hand, I'm hearing that your role is connectivity from the city, and then on your hand, you're saying it's not connectivity. So where is the project for the connectivity?
Well, the connectivity that I see is connecting the traffic flow, roughly 55 to 60,000 cars a day on Federal Highway. The connectivity is to bring them into the West First Avenue corridor, so they can actually, instead of being drive-through traffic, can be stopped in customers and diners and so forth to shops and restaurants that will be developing along that West First Avenue corridor.
Yes, I'm
I'm
sorry. Hold
sorry.
on. Go, you're like,
But yeah, but Michael, part of it is also bringing the whole city together.
Yes.
And that's been the whole idea, is trying to bring the west to the east and the east to the west. So it's not just east to west, it's also west to east. And I feel like that's being missed completely. Um, I don't even know what else to say. I feel like that's being missed completely, and I feel like that's something that could actually be beneficial for everybody.
so what are you asking? Because we can have a project. We can create a project for them
Yes.
to do.
Yeah.
So okay, what are you asking? What's your project?
I'm asking for a project for connectivity.
A project. So do we
I-
want to use that $150,000 for connectivity?
That's what I would rather use it.
Yes, yes. Anybody? Hold on. Let me. Sorry, I don't know how to get you on. Go ahead, board. Member
Yes,
Davis.
I do agree with the connectivity project, but I don't want to omit the incubator project, and I want to make sure that we include that. So I don't want one to cancel out the other, and I want to be clear about that.
Okay, so since there is support for the incubator project, um, and he said 160, 150. So what does that leave us with? $90,000?
uh, Roughly about that. But again, I there's nothing I've said to suggest that we are excluding ourselves from working with the city and Anna on the east-west connection of West First Street and Northwest First Street. There was nothing I said to exclude that, but basically, by us accelerating the development of a complete streets project on on West First Avenue. I'm sorry, this is confusing, between West First
You're
Avenue and
confusing the
Northwest
shit.
First Street. It's easy to misunderstand. but those two corridors are intersecting each other. It is the way to connect our northwest business district as well as our east-west business corridors. That's the connectivity that I think was being talked about, and it's very important that all of this be worked on together on a manageable method. So it's something that needs to be done in phase projects, because the cost of a complete streets project for two elongated corridors would be more than you could probably manage. But doing 2 to 3 block segments of each of these corridors where they intersect is the connectivity I think you're looking for, and would be highly beneficial to the city, both connecting Federal Highway to Bryan Road and Dania Point, as well as north and south connecting West First Avenue, basically with being the ulterior frontage to Federal Highway. That is a connection too.
Okay, so I think that we're gonna, yeah, but that we are, yeah, it's already support to keep the incubator, but everything else about the art and entertainment district should go, and I see your hand, board member Ahmed, should go towards the connectivity, that portion of it. Go ahead, board member Ahmed.
Yeah, so my concern is this. So ever since we had that meeting where, remember, everyone came up and they all talked about what they were going to do, when I think it was part of the arts district thing that we were talking about. Here's my problem with writing all these checks and giving away all this money. It's not crystal clear to me what every one of these projects are. So like, here's part of how I judge it. I judge it if I was there right now and I was walking to my car and one of our constituents stopped and said, what exactly did you spend the money on? And if I can't describe it crystal clear what it is, I'm really not comfortable doing it. And I don't understand. Like, first I hear what the city manager is saying, and I all right, I'm on board with that. I understand that. And then I hear it switch back over here and it sounds like you're talking about something different. And it's not making sense to me. And so usually after enough time, if the city manager talks, I know what she said and I get it. And I could, like I said, I could explain it to somebody with, some brevity. I can't explain anything you guys are talking about to somebody else, like what exactly it is, what exactly we're spending the money on. And that's where I'm getting stuck on it. Like, do I like the incubator project? I mean, yeah, in theory, but I'm not buying that it can be pulled off. I don't really see how. And the connectivity thing, you lost me altogether. Are you talking about more the city manager's way she described it, or whatever you guys were saying the last few minutes? It's not crystal clear. I like, when I'm talking about money, I like crystal clear, and maybe it's just me, but I'm not fully understanding the projects.
Through the mayor, I want to explain just my piece to Commissioner Odman and Candido's on the call, because this is what we have been discussing. Okay, the city is focusing south to north only, from Grandpa's all the way down to Sterling. All the way down to Dania Beach Boulevard, down north to where the post office begins, which is the end of where the women's club is, that campus that we have, where we have the Nybrook Swanson and the green space, the women's club, and the fire station. So our focus is right now with this 500,000 turnkey from A to Z, from Grandpa's to the women's club, that space there, and the City Hall campus. That's our focus.
Okay, and then what's their focus?
Manager, I could also jump in if they want me to.
No. Okay, so crystal clear, check. I get what you just said. So then what part of the connectivity is CRA going to do? I guess that's what I missed. I didn't understand.
Okay.
Okay, well, I understand now what city manager was talking about. You're right. She speaks very clearly. That corridor, that segment of corridor is also critical to our CRA plan as well. All right. And part of that is to create an environment that not only is walkable, but you're talking about cafe tables, you're talking about event space, you're talking about the types of things that someone can stand in the middle of, turn and look and says, this is my idea of an arts district. So we are talking about very much the same thing. The piece that I'm thinking that we can bring to the table is that because of some of the uses we're bringing to the table, such as the incubator, it's got a very good chance to get federal funding to help support this and accelerate what we can do. It will leverage the city money that's putting in to where it can actually be done. Now, one of the things that I haven't heard, again, I haven't heard all of the details of Manager Garcia's vision on that. But one of the things that we have certainly talked about and would very much like to do is include in this the burying of the overhead power lines in this corridor, because they are very intrusive along this corridor of West First Avenue that we've talked about. All right. And we've already had some meetings and discussions with Florida Power and Light on how that could be incorporated into the Complete Streets project design as it evolves. But basically, we're talking about the same type of corridor and different ways we can help bring assistance and support to accelerate that project.
Mayor, may I? So basically, if I understand what you're saying, you're not investing in infrastructure. You would be using the funds for the grant program or business initiative to focus on this area.
That is basically correct, with only one exception, and that is I did put money in this budget to accelerate the engineering so that we could be in a position to make the application for funding.
Does that help you, Commissioner?
Mostly.
Right before you say what you have to say, Frank, I wanna be very clear when we say using those funds for businesses. I had a conversation with you a few months ago, and you said that you wanted to give one of the businesses like $50,000 or something like it to move to Dania Beach. Is that what you're referring to? Because I'm definitely not in favor of paying businesses $50,000 to come here.
Well, what is in the budget here is two pieces. One is there is another grant program that will bring to you in the next 30 to 60 days. That is just a general business attraction and retention program for anybody, for any business. And there's actually, I've built in bonuses for businesses that initiate in Dania Beach, whether it's a Dania Beach resident or a Dania Beach business to expand. I'd have some funding in there to support that growth of businesses along our business corridors. All right.
Okay, can you speak about the business that you said you
Okay.
wanted to give $50,000 to?
Now, there are other types of businesses that are catalyst type of businesses. Right now, if you go around South Florida and talk about where are the art centers in South Florida, Dania Beach doesn't come to the top of that list. And bringing some businesses in that will have that attraction, that will help us create that identity, could be very helpful to accelerate the environment so that all businesses of this nature can succeed. Now, I'm not making a specific proposal. I have just basically asked to park money for that conversation to come up, but I have not got a specific proposal.
You told me it was for the guy that does the hot glass.
Well, that was a discussion at that time, but it's not been something to bring to you at this point, because it's not been something that has evolved into an actual ask.
But if it's something that we're going to fund, if we're talking about funding within the budget, like you're saying that you have another grant program. We have a lot of grant programs and they're not being very successful. And we keep creating more grant programs, but I would like to know the specifics and the plans of that before I say, okay, am in favor of putting $100,000 into this grant fund or that grant fund. We know nothing about it. Right now, you're asking us to put money in placeholders of stuff that we have no idea and we haven't seen yet. That's very difficult for me to do. And I've already had a conversation with you. You said that this guy is a catalyst and you wanted to give him $50,000 to move here. And I explained, is this going to be consistent with the rest of our businesses? Are we going to be giving these types of grants to the rest of our businesses? What about the people who live here in Dania Beach, who want to start a business here in Dania Beach? They're being turned away. I see emails that are sent and we turn them to the county and say, this is what the county has, this is what the county has. But if it's a certain type of business that we want here, we're going to give them $50,000. Well, we don't we're in the place right now that we don't have to give anybody any money to come here as far as world renowned type businesses that we're trying to bring here. So I want to be very clear on what I'm going to support or not support. And I don't want to feel like it's very generalized in everything and nothing is specific enough that I can go to the line item and know and be comfortable when I'm going talking to constituents or even my vote to say, this is why I voted for this because I know exactly where it's going. Right now, it's kind of like in the cloud, up in the air, nothing, there's no plan. There's very little plans for very little of what you're asking for. And that's difficult for me. Frank?
Thank you, Chair James. I just wanted to, because we're getting, seems like to the point of maybe making some kind of a decision, and I want to make sure the funding that's been set on the table for whatever this initiative is clear. There's the 50,000 complete streets engineering, Director Chen, correct?
Yes,
70,000 in district stimulus incentives
yes,
funding. Okay, and then you mentioned earlier the 55,000, the business attraction funding.
yes.
Okay, so that's a total of $175,000 potentially available for this discussion right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, as to the program, I do have a draft of the program that would be the business incentive program for businesses of any type to go into our business districts, into commercial properties and so forth. What I am a little confused on is because when last week, or excuse me, a couple of weeks ago, when we talked about the incubator, it was discussed that basically it doesn't make sense to talk about the incubator until we've decided on the budget. Okay. But what I'm hearing now is that it doesn't make sense to set it in a budget until we've identified the program. So I'm not quite sure. I can tell you that I do have that. I do have a program. I have a draft of the program for a business expansion and incentive grant that will be available for you to consider whether you want to support or not. But I've asked for $55,000 to support that for when I bring it up. And I have the program draft. It's ready to discuss with you at the next meeting if you choose.
Okay, so just to clarify, when I mentioned that it didn't make sense to make a financial decision on whether or not we wanted the incubator. There are still questions that you couldn't even answer about the incubator program. Like I'm asking, what are going to be the hours? So what are going to be the hours for the incubator program?
Yes, actually, when it comes back, I have gotten more of the programming information from FIU. It will be on your agenda next week.
But do you have the answer now while we're having the discussion?
Actually, I do. I don't have their dates and their activities memorized for this conversation. So.
Okay, so not prepared. So what I'm saying is,
No, it's not a question of not prepared.
Excuse me. You're not prepared if you can't answer the question. You're asking us for $60,000 a year. You should be able to account for everything that we don't know what the return on the investment is for the city of Dania Beach for this incubator program. And you're going to get it. But what I'm saying is, I said that we shouldn't decide financially if we haven't even really done the budget yet. But anything that you're asking for should have a plan for it. You should be able to speak freely about it. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. You know, we're gonna go back and forth on this. I can see this, what's going on here. So what I would recommend to the board is that we approve the funding that we're talking about. And then what we do is when he brings the programs back to us with an explanation, that we either deny it at that point and it either stays in the reserves or it doesn't get approved. And that way, if we don't like what he has to do, since there is no programs available at this time that he's not, the explanations that everybody's not happy with, we can discuss it at that time as each individual item comes up. Because right now we're talking about, what we're having is you don't have a program, you want the money. So instead of us bickering back and forth, just put the money into the budget. Let's see what happens. If we don't like it, if you can't present a program that we're all agreeable on, then we move on and we put the money stays in reserves. And next year, the time comes up, if the money's still there because we didn't use it because we didn't approve the budget, then it's there for us and we give less money in the budget next year. That's all.
Well, I want to add some projects that I would like for us to do to the budget, and however that changes or have to figure it out. How much do we have in our reserve for the CRA?
Or is it a million?
For fiscal year 23, based on the projections that are in here, we don't have any reserves.
I used a million last year. This year.
Okay, so there aren't. So we currently have no more reserves for the CRA.
That's why I said some of the things I said earlier about, trying to resolve some of these other properties and this and that. We can put money back into the CRA.
The budget that's before you is using all of the available CRA reserve to support the budget this year.
Right.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
If she has some ideas that she wants to do with the CRA, is there even if down the road, if something comes up and we don't use some of the funds because they don't agree or this or that, she comes with a program that she wants to do, is there a way we can take from our general funds and add that to it later if it works out? Is there some availability that we could possibly put back in the CRA a little bit further down the road on some of the projects that she may want to bring out that maybe we all agree to?
Just again to clarify about the CRA as a whole, just so everyone.
I just didn't know whether we had to do it all at one time or not. That's all.
You don't have to do it all at one time. The CRA doesn't have a tip, so its funding is simply just a transfer from the city's general fund. That's
right.
how it operates, almost like a department of the city.
Right.
So if an initiative comes up during the year and you all want to support it as the city commission, you can appropriate
Okay.
funding from the general fund.
I want to fence in all the CRA properties that we currently have. That it has become a trash pile, and some of them, not all of them, but definitely the ones that I passed by. Just like we did the ones on the Smith store property, I would like to fence in those other ones that have become highly polluted or trashed or loitered. And I'm not sure of how much it takes to do that.
Well, I think that I see where you're coming from right now, and you're going to be wanting certain things, and I think maybe the rest of the commission may want certain ththings. Maybe we should put a list together, submit them to the CRA director, and then have them all out there instead of shooting from the hip. Because I spoke what I wanted us to do, and I don't want to push the issue tonight about the unbuildable lots and this and that, and then we can take each item as we go along. And you're going to want to fence in the lots, and some of the lots that you want to fence in the CRA properties. I think we should get rid of some of them or turn them into patch projects. There's stuff that I think it's all, a lot of this is up for discussion. And if we sit there and start doing, you're welcome to do whatever you want. You're the board chair, but I would not be content making a decision without understanding the complete situation of each property, why we do each property, and what we'd be doing with that without understanding where they're at, what's going on. And to throw them out there like that, I'm not prepared for making a decision in your favor or not in your favor, whichever it is.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, typically when we come to the budget meetings, we bring forth projects that we want to do, just like I did, with the city. And I'm not saying what's going to happen with those, but to at least fence them in. I don't know any housing projects that we're doing within the CRA other than beautification projects that we normally do. I would like to see us possibly do some beautification projects with the businesses, or have a grant for just signage of helping businesses to have more attractive signage on our major thoroughfares and stuff like that. So, um, those are things that I do think that needs more, I guess, discussion, but definitely for just fencing in some of those properties because it is a complete eyesore, and we cite other people, and we're not doing a good job keeping up with our own properties. And whoever is in charge of maintaining the outside of those things, like by the Smith store, a couple of weeks ago, the grass was higher than it was higher than it was like it hadn't been mowed in like months. So I'm not sure of how we're maintaining the properties that we do have. And I'm not saying to make a decision on what to do with those properties, but to at least put a fence around
Well,
it.
yeah, I agree. I mean, certain things I think we should do is, I mean, some of those properties that the CRA can't handle, they need to return them back to the city so the city can maintain them. And then at least the grass gets cut and the grounds look good. But that's what I'm saying, that all these are, each lot is something that we should be putting up on the screen, and we should be deciding what we're going to do with it, and whether you want to fence it in or what do you want to do with each piece. I mean, if you start fencing in every single property, all they're going to do is be fenced in. Nothing's going to happen from that point. They're just going to sit idle. We need to make a decision on how to move these properties in one direction, whether it's a park, whether it's a patch, whether it's sell it or whatever we got to do, or turn it into the neighbors and split up and offer the neighbors or give it to the neighbors that are, subdivided out. But somebody has to be responsible for it. But I mean, if you feel like you just want to fence them in, listen, I'm not opposed to it. It's just I don't think we're going to get anywhere with it. You know what I mean?
I understand. I'm just saying because it's a nuisance and an eyesore. Maybe not to all of them, but just to some of them, especially that one on West Dania Beach Boulevard. I mean, I've seen tents on it. I've seen all type of garbage and debris, and it's nasty. To be honest with you, and that's a representation of us, in our city, in our property. So, and I'm not even so opposed to selling a property as long as we're not selling it to be market value of what, like, we're in the CRA area, so we understand the incomes of these locations, and to just sell it to a developer who's going to put an unaffordable home on that is not serving the people that live. We're not giving an opportunity to the people who live in the CRA area to be a homeowner. You know, like we're doing first time home buyer program, we can't offer a home to anyone. You know what I mean? And so I think that we need to really pay attention and look at those things. If we can sell those properties and have a restriction on how much they can build a home for, or even if we sit on the properties and wait and see what the market is going to do, and the ones that are unbuildable, make the parks or whatever we're going to do that we deem unbuildable. I haven't even heard back about the townhomes and what we could possibly do, to share those walls and make it more affordable for us to build. I know right now it's unaffordable to build anything, but for futuristic planning, it's not going to always be the way that it is. There's no way that we can continue to survive and rents are going up and one bedroom is $2,400. And so I would just be uncomfortable to sell a lot that's going to keep the market at that rate. And I know that you're a businessman and your thing is about making money, but we also have to look at who we're serving and where these homes are and where these potential developments would be. Um,
Mayor, if I may, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think your colleagues would agree with this, and we could have a good game plan. I think with the buildable lots, we can either sell them with a caveat for, affordable and or workforce housing, and or we could put an RFP, for developers with that same caveat for affordable and or workforce housing. And then the non-buildable lots that are just small or irregular lots, we can work together to designate them as community parks and little dog parks, and some can have tot lots, some can have, exercise equipment for adults. So I think, putting fences around everything is not the best plan. And I know that's not what you want, chain link all around the CRA, but I think you guys are getting there with your dialogue in regards to designating the buildable lots or selling them for the purpose of affordable and or workforce housing. And then the smaller ones we can work and augment our green space footprint for parks in our city.
Actually, you've hit on a very important discussion that this board needs to have, and that is to talk about all of the CRA properties and what are their characteristics, what are their opportunities, and to come up with ideas of what you would like to do with them. And in fact, at the next meeting, I would plan to ask you to allow me to do a publication about the CRA's interest in using and identifying uses for the CRA owned properties, because that would allow you to have the discussion and make a decision if you want to say convey a piece of land back to the city for a park, if you want to put a property up for sale for housing. That kind of decision can be made once the publication is done. But this is a very important discussion. And having these properties sit back unused and basically nothing but an expense that's not providing value to the community is really not good. And this is a discussion that needs to happen.
Board member, Llewellyn?
Thank you. Everybody else kind of jumped in and I was kind of going in the same direction, but I'm listening to all of you and everything you're saying and good ideas. Not sure if they're good ideas yet because we haven't vetted them enough, but here, why don't we do something like this as opposed to, and I'm not really opposed to doing a publication and putting out something to see what people would be willing to do with their different properties, but I think it might be putting the cart before the horse, and it might be a better idea if we did some sort of a workshop to discuss each and every one of these properties, where they are, what the size is, whether they're buildable or not, what the issues are, if there are certain lots that are having more problems than others with trash, with homeless, with whatever, and then go back and determine which ones we're going to put out into a publication. And I agree with the city manager that putting fences around things, I don't know that that's going to necessarily help the problem because it's not necessarily going to be the most attractive fence. And I'm sure because it's not something that we're planning on keeping there permanently. And it's only going to hide the problem because people can still throw trash back there. They might still loiter on it. They might still go back there and put tents up and we won't even see it then because now there's a fence.
Well, what's your suggestion? Because we got to.
My suggestion is that we have some sort of a workshop to discuss the different properties. We put this on the back burner for the time being. Have the workshop, discuss each of the properties individually, figure out which ones we want to do what with, and then that if we sell some of them, it may actually bring in the money to cover for anything else that you want to do with them, is what I'm saying. So this way, we look at them individually. We don't put it as a budget item right now. As Frank said, we can come back later and we can address it and either add money in or do a mid-year adjustment or whatever it is that we're going to do. But I actually think that if we sit down and we look at each one of these, some of them may even itself out. You might have a situation where you can sell a couple of them and then it pays for the other projects on the others that we want to do. So that would be my suggestion.
Meanwhile, we will step up monitoring on this. We actually do drive-bys a couple of times a week on these properties. And we do try to keep up. We work with we have a lawn service that actually is supposed to cut these properties for us. And we will continue, we will actually step that up so that it will be a less, a less community nuisance in the meantime while we're waiting for that discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna move on from that item. I'm really struggling to understand how you have a budget with zero reserves. And I know we can always say the city has the money, the city has the money, the city has the money. But I don't understand how the CRA isn't giving themselves any cushion because it wasn't the most sexy thing or the good thing to come back and ask the city for money. You know, I mean, I've lived through a scrutinizing the CRA director for budgeting out everything that we wanted and asking the city for the projects that the commission wanted. I mean, almost fired the CRA director for that. And now we have no comprehensive plans of anything. And we are just filling up the budget with money that we can't account for. I'm struggling with that. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with that. And you guys can do what you want to do, but I can't in good faith support a budget. Like we just hear excuses and things every week, every month. I haven't seen anything done. We're doing this incubator for FAU. I don't even, I'm wondering, could the incubator operate in a city facility, or does it need the facility to even operate? Why can't we do it on Zoom like we've been doing every other thing? Like, what's stopping us? What has to be hands on that we can't do these things virtually? I just don't understand how we're giving money, giving money, giving money, and we don't have clear answers. And so I'm going to be quiet for the rest of it because I can't, I don't know. I don't know what else to kind of, not FIU, but I don't know what else to kind of say that I can in good faith support these things where it's, I don't know, what do y'all want to do? I'm done.
It's like I said, I mean, we have to get a budget done before October 1. We're in September. So either we discuss it at a different time or we pass the budget and we either uh, vote on when the time comes up on the programs. We request him to bring the program to us individually, and we either deny the program. If he does that way, the money is, if we don't use it for, we're not happy with the program he brings to us, the money doesn't get spent. I mean, to sit there and we at least the money is there for the programs or other programs or some of the programs you're talking about. At least the money's in there from the general funds. If we don't allow it to go through the budget, then we're stuck. If we allow it to go to the budget when the time comes up, I would not approve anything without having a extensive explanation of what we're talking about. And if we're not all happy on the vote, it doesn't get passed, and then doesn't spend the money. The money stays there and goes there. But right now, I think the idea right now is to pass the budget, get it going. Let's move on, and then when the time comes up, if we're not happy, we don't pass it. That's all. Simple as that.
Well,
I think it's a simple result, because if we don't like it, we don't pass it. Sit here and decide all these things today. We can't do it because he doesn't have the answers that everybody's looking for. So he can't produce the answers the next time it comes up. He says, "I want to spend $50,000 on this or that." We say no, or we say yes. It's up to the board at that point.
So if I come back with projects, it's not,
I'm not upset with your project. We
I'm
either
not,
vote
no,
for it,
no,
yes
no,
or
no,
no.
no. I'm saying when I come back from, because this stuff is supposed to be done before right now. We shouldn't have to make a
But
rush
it's too late
decision.
right now. It
We
wasn't
shouldn't have
done.
to make a rush decision. This is
Then,
crazy.
then postpone the budget and then we wait until later. It's up to you. You're the board director.
It's not a me. That's not, no. What I'm saying is we shouldn't be doing this in September, number one. We
past
said
the
this
point.
last year, and here we
Past
are
the point
again.
though. We're past that point.
So I want to know, if I come back with projects, is there going to be an issue of where we're going to find the money? Because that's what the budget workshop is for, seeing where we could take money from
What happens
and
if we
put
don't agree
money
to it
other
though? What
places.
happens if we don't agree with your projects?
Hmm?
What hap- what
But I
happens if we don't?
haven't said how much money to allocate or anything. So all I'm saying is,
Frank's-
as long as there is not an issue of where the money is going to come from, if I come with good projects,
We'll bring it from the general funds, which Frank said that we could move it around if we need to, or we'll sell some property. I mean, there's so many alternatives right now that are not being explained, that we have opportunities. We have to take one step at a time, because right now we don't have any pure explanations on each item that we want to pass. To sit there and go item 1, item 2, item 3 down the road to pass it, we can't pass it because we don't have any explanations and no one's satisfied with the answer. So we take it one step at a time. If we get to the point, listen, whether it's your general budget or your general funds with the city or through the CRA, you can bring all your projects up you want, but if it's not in the funds to have it, you're not going to get it. The same way we go in. So the only thing we can do is take it, I mean, and one step at a time. But I'm sure if the projects are good and everybody agrees, we'll find the funds. We always do.
I'm gonna go to board member Odman and then board member Davis. But there has to be some accountability at some point in time.
If-
Like,
Okay, so yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. This isn't the best way to do this. But more broadly, I agree with the Vice Mayor that this is probably the best way to move forward, or at least I don't know any other way to move forward unless the city manager or the city attorney have an alternate suggestion. And I don't see why at that time, if we passed it, and then at that time when we have the discussion, if we hear some plans that finally make sense to us, we go forth. If we don't, they still don't make sense to us at that point, we say no. If your projects sound good, we go forth with those, and then that's it. Again, I don't think it's the most ideal way to do it, but given where we are on September 6th at 6:12 p.m., I think it's the best way to move forward.
board member, hold on. Board member Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I basically agree with my colleagues. I am process-oriented person, and I think that we need to look for the future, for the next budget year and make sure that we have a better process and system in place. But where we are right now, we can't go backwards, we can't go forward, and we can only move forward in the way that I know that I'm going to move forward, whether it's the complete streets, whether it's the arts and entertainment district, whether it's whatever it is, anything that comes before us. I want to see something. I want to see the documentation. What is the mission? What is the purpose? What are the goals? What are the benchmarks? What are we bringing to the table? I should be able to see. Frank did an excellent job with the budget and brief. I knew what was going to be in there. I knew the inputs, the outputs, but I specifically asked for that because I know how I like to learn and I know what I like to see when something is comprehensive. So I want to see whatever comes forward to have a comprehensive plan in writing with documentation to show us exactly what's going on. Like if Commissioner Ottman said, if somebody were to walk up to me on the street and say, what's going on in the CRA district, I should be able to pull out my little CRA plan and say, you know what? This is what we're doing with this is what we're doing with that, and this is why I can justify it to you. So we need to move forward from where we are now, but going forward, I think that anything that actually comes before approval should have an actual comprehensive plan in a way that we're able to justify it and describe it to our residents with justification. Thank you.
I agree. So my question is, with this incubator, are you going to have a comprehensive plan before it goes, or is that just it?
Yes, yes. And in fact, what's being described here is my understanding of the way a budget process works. You identify priorities and areas of activity that you want to have. You probably provide a budget for them. And then when the program's put together, I have to bring it to you with details, descriptions. I mean, simply because in the budget, I can't spend any of this money without your approval specific to a project. All right. So you're not approving the Complete Streets project tonight. What you're saying is the Complete Streets project is an important piece. And yes, we put some money toward it. Now tell us how in the future, when you're ready to spend the money, what is that money going to be spent for specifically? That's exactly what this will do.
I'm not. It's nothing to pass. We're just having a budget discussion. We don't pass anything, but I really hope that there's more organization and more thought of what is being brought to us, because we have to hold you accountable. Like you're the executive director of the CRA, and there are no times where you're asking for money that you shouldn't be able to tell us the specifics of something. So I'm finished with my comments. Are you all finished with yours? Let me see if Commissioner Ottman's gone. Anybody else? All right, adjourned. I mean, she wasn't gone, but her video was.